Welcome to Creators Corner, where I'll show you tips and tricks to take your TCG content to the next level. Today we're making a super easy 3-dimensional magic card in After Effects. There are a ton of ways you can use this in your videos, and I'll give you some examples later. For now, let's jump right into After Effects. Okay, so open After Effects and create a new composition. You can choose the dimensions and frame rate that's best for your project, but I'm going to go with 1920 by 1080 and 30 frames per second. If you don't know what you need, just go with what I'm doing. It's a pretty standard place to start. Next, we're going to need some card images. If you're making a magic card, I recommend heading over to Scryfall. They have high quality scans of pretty much every card in existence. And better still, they're in PNG format already, so you don't have to worry about removing white corners from around the cards. If you're making a Pokemon, YuGiOh, or Digimon card, I recommend checking out these sites for high quality images. I'll leave the links to these in the video description below. I'll be referencing magic cards from here on out, but the process is the same for any card. If you're animating a normal one-sided card, you'll need the magic back, so let's grab that from the MTG wiki. Unfortunately, this one is a JPEG, which means we've got to remove these white corners. You could probably find a PNG version, but be careful grabbing them directly from Google Images. Some people intentionally upload high-res, modified versions of them to trip you up. If you accidentally use one of these someday, just know you're not the first and you won't be the last. So let's save ourselves the embarrassment and go with the MTG Wiki version. Now that we've got our images, let's drag them into our project panel. Drag the card front onto the Create Composition icon. It'll make a new composition at the exact dimensions of the image. You could just drop it onto the canvas, but by making it a composition, it'll be easy to swap the card images or add interesting effects later. Go back to our main composition and drag the card front comp that we just made into the timeline. Now click this toggle here and make the layer a 3D layer. Now After Effects isn't a true 3D software. Generally speaking, you're working with 2-dimensional layers inside of a 3-dimensional workspace. As you can see here, when we rotate the card, the back is just the inverse image of the front. Lucky for us, cards are made from paper, which is close enough to 2-dimensional for us to simulate by putting the front image and the back image on top of each other. So I'm going to do the same to the back as I did to the front. And move it back a pixel behind the front. If I rotate the camera around the card, you'll see we've got the back of the card now visible. It is backwards, but that's an easy fix. Just go to the composition and change the width to -100. Boom, fixed. Now we've got a double-sided card, but if you want to move or rotate the cards, things get wonky. We don't have time to adjust both layers independently whenever we want to move it. So we're going to add a layer that controls the properties of both. Go to Layers, New, Null Layer. A null layer is just like it sounds. It's null, nothing, just an empty layer, which is exactly what we need. For the sake of organization, place it between the front and back layers. Make it 3D, and then adjust its position to be directly between the two layers. Click and drag these little whips over to the null layer to parent them. And now the cards will rotate and move relative to the null layer. At this point, we are pretty much done. The last thing to do is to get rid of these white corners. So double click into the card back composition, go to the top of the screen here and double click on this rectangle. If yours isn't showing a rectangle, click on it to open the dropdown and select rectangle before double clicking. This will create a shape layer the exact dimensions of your composition. Twirl down into your rectangle settings until you see roundness, and adjust the corner radius until it matches the card. Next, we're going to turn the shape layer into a mask, which hides everything it isn't covering. Go back into the main composition and you'll see that we've fixed our corners. Now that the main card rig is complete, we can add keyframes to the various properties to move and rotate the card however we want. I've used this type of rig a lot over the years, and there's a few tricks I've learned to make life easier when using them. The first is to lock the front and back images. You don't want to accidentally change the position of just the front or back, so locking these ensures that you don't accidentally make any changes you don't want. Next is to rename the null layer with the card name, and add front and back to the corresponding image names. Naming layers appropriately becomes very important as your project gets larger. Lastly, hide those layers in the layer panel. By hiding the layers that you don't need to interact with, it makes it much easier to navigate through the important parts of your file. Now I'll take a few minutes to show you ways to use this rig in your content. First and easiest is a simple flip reveal. If you've got a preview card from Wizards, or you just want to keep the card a mystery until a certain point, this can work well. To make it even more effective, you can add special effects to the card to make it stand out. Second is for showing flip cards like Delver of Secrets or Werewolves. Third is a draw effect. If you are demonstrating a combo, this can add a bit of realism. And finally, a falling effect. By adding rotation and position keyframes, you can make a pretty cool effect for transitions. Get creative and try out different things. Combining this rig with some of the effects from my upcoming videos will really level up the production value of your videos. If you have any trouble with this effect or have a question, drop me a comment below. Next week, I'll be showing you how to create this awesome effect used by Command Zone. So be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out.